No suspects are in custody as the investigation at the scene continues. Oil storage units continue to burn out of control at the huge Texaco refinery near the Texas-Louisiana border. 3 storage units exploded in
I was very young, 4, 5 years old, really. Well, because my dad was in the hotel business, my father, and he had a motion picture theater. And so that became my babysitter. And so, I mean, like literally, I mean, my dad was a movie fanatic, and my mother was taken from the movie theater to the hospital to give birth to me. So they took me to the movies every night. And then when I was old enough to stay by myself in a theater, then the ushers would watch after me. And I would say there sometimes I'd watch the film 3 times or 2 times through every day. And so I think I saw more of that than reality. I was 3, that's when I started borrowing my parents, or taking their movie camera, because they shot 8mm home movies constantly. And so I would go to the movies, and then I'd come back and I'd try to reenact a little scene and shoot it.
What do you want?
A friend of mine suggested that I go see this movie playing at the Student Union, and so I went to see it. It's a black and white print. I think it was a 16 print of Night of the Living Dead. And I watched the audience, and they just, you know, they went crazy. And so I more than anything, I thought, well, okay, this is the way. And so really that was the genesis of it. I saw that, I mean, the genesis of my making the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it was the time of Watergate. And it was the time that, at least myself, I started feeling, well, you know, they don't have to be telling the truth, these people on television.
What do you want?
And so, in disillusion, I think I was becoming disillusioned, and I know the students and the kids around me were either disillusioned or vehement about change and making changes.
Nobody's gonna hurt you.
Things were weird, you know, things were strange. So the film became at least a cinematic metaphor for the conditions of our times. And I think more than anything, that's what Texas Chainsaw Massacre means to me. And in any given time, I saw there was this 16mm, very, very bad film made about some monster in the creek, in the bayou or something like that. And but anyway, so it came to town and played at the theater, and it was advertised as, you know, a true story. Just like the news, you know, everything was true. And except they used that word true, and people lined up around the corner. I mean, literally, they filled a 1,200-seat theater, and they kept filling it. And so I thought, well, you know, this is a movie, and these are our times, and they're not telling us the truth. And this did kind of happen, and it's the truth in my mind. I don't know.
Stop!
This is really the day the story gelled, when everything came into focus, and within 30 seconds I had the story. One holiday season, and I was at a department store, and there are a lot more people now, but there was a lot of people back then. And they were, you know, and it looked like, God, how can I get out of this store? And I was, you know, as I was saying that to myself, I was looking at a rack of chainsaws on display, and I said, oh, that's how I could get out. I could, you know, I could start one of those, and the sound would, people would, and I could just walk out the door.
Stop!
I used it, I mean, for 2 reasons. You know, one is, you know how lethal it is instantly. You know, you can get hurt badly by just using one the wrong way. And secondly, the sound that it made. It was that explosive sound of it. To me, made it just far more organic and real than putting in a musical sting, because it has its, you know, it has its own sting. I was a vegetarian at the time because I can't stand killing anything. Not ants, spiders, nothing. You know, it was based on the Ed Gein. Some of my relatives lived in Wisconsin, about 20 miles away, about 20 miles away from Ed Gein's. He was a cannibal. He killed one or two people, I'm not sure, but the biggest part of his work, I think, was digging up graves and making, covering the furniture with human skin and making, you know, lampshades out of, you know. My relatives used to wind me up with this story. They saw it scared the hell out of me. And so I carried a lot of those memories from childhood that when the story fell in place, it all went together, and that part of it was true. That family, serial killers, I don't know how many they'd killed before the movie started, but they did a lot of grave robbing. Of course, must have done some killing. Visually, Leatherface came from another personal horror story of mine from when I was a child that his family doctor told me about. Told me a story about when he was a pre-med student, and working on cadavers, that he skinned a cadaver's face and dried it out and wore it to the Halloween party. And then that stuck in my head. Ah, okay. So that visually, that's where it came from. Physically, Leatherface is kind of like a big baby Huey. I mean, his sexuality is ambiguous. Maybe there was a lack of oxygen to the brain when he was born. Leatherface is afraid. Right after he kills Jerry, when he kills him, then he runs back to the window and he looks out the window. It's his long shot, and you see him run, and he starts patting himself on the face and looking worried. And that's, you know, he's thinking, where are all these kids coming from? My God, you know, I'm in real trouble now.
Pam, is that you? Anybody home?
The fascination for the serial killer, I think it's looking into that closet, you know, into that dark room, I should say, that there's a doorway to that, I think, in all human beings' minds and animals, that thing that's genetic. I mean, you know, to live, something must die, but yet again, there is the darkest of all places to look. You know, it's the reason people slow down here on the freeway when there's a car wreck, and they slow down to look on the other side. I think that, you know, they want to see some blood or guts, or I think it's exploring the dark side in a safe way. And, you know, we can all take that trip to the movie theater or the video store. I wanted her to win, but I wanted it to be real. You know, I wanted to at least tip my hat toward reality, and I think someone going through an experience like that would go out of their mind and become traumatized. They may go catatonic before they would be as reactive to escape and to jump through a plate glass window the second time. And I would expect that it took her a long time to work her problems out. Nonetheless, she was strong and survived. writing partner and I who knew a lot of dysfunctional people, we would, write those lines, and when they worked, and we knew they worked, just on paper, we would break out laughing, for 5 minutes that, this kind of thing this is probably close to the way it is. I didn't really study it to that degree. I would, and also I didn't treat it like crazy, like stereotypical crazy, where everyone's, mean and, and grotesque, and kind of play acting grotesque. And I just really wanted to show a clash of characters, a crescendo of emotional nitroglycerin, dynamite. It's hard to kill someone, I think. I mean, I don't think it's as easy as they used to show you in the movie, bam, one shot, they fall over, one stab with a knife, no scream, just, you're dead, blink. And so I thought, well, okay, I went through the process as a documentarian, thinking, okay, what could happen if this hammer struck someone's head? Shards of broken skull would go down into the brain, and probably there very easily could be an involuntary nerve reaction. And so I don't think people had seen that before. I didn't want it to be a gory film, but I hear that too. That's the goriest film I ever saw. You think you see things that you don't. You see a finger cut, you see Leatherface get his leg cut, the brother with the razor on his hand. But for instance, when Pam is hanging up, she's put on the meat hook, you have the sensation that you saw it because of the way I shot it. One of the things I did, and that was to select a costume for her that exposed her back to make it seem even more impossible, a special effect to hang her there. And that was featured, like her bare back shooting over the hook as she gets close to the hook, and then cuts back around wider to Leatherface as he, makes the final hanging thrust. And then when she's on the meat hook screaming, there is speckles of dried blood behind her where other things had been hanging. And then there's a pan down her body to show that she is suspended, and below her feet is this wash tub. And we know what it's there for. It's there to catch blood, but you don't see one drop of blood going in. And what you conjure up in your mind is a lot worse than I can show you. The sun was a part of the problem. And so under the opening credits, and you see all that red, well, that's solar flares, sunspots. Well, solar flares affect things on Earth, like television and radio and static on the radio. It was integral to this happening. Astrologically, this was not a good day. I wanted to give you the kind of images that the day would provide you with, this bad chainsaw day. There's no reason for a genre film to have to be a B picture or a bad movie, with attention paid to performances and detail and just the craft and science of making a movie. So I am detail-oriented anyway, that's all right. In the script, there was stuffed cats and dogs, and they found out when they were going to dispose of the carcasses, and so they went down and got a truckload, 500 pounds, I guess, of this dead flesh. And so they were trying to shoot formaldehyde in them and find a way to prop them up on a stand. And in the process of doing that, Dorothy Pearl, the makeup, was injecting, and she injected some small creature that was lying across her lap, and the needle of formaldehyde went into her own leg by accident. And I think she said, I don't think this is working. And I said, no, this is definitely not working. Please give them a...
You like this, Dave?
So while we were shooting that last scene, the dinner table scene, that also took 27 hours straight to do, because I had one actor in the Screen Actors Guild, and his contract was up that day. And it was the last prosthetic we had for old Grandpa, the last mask. So we stayed there, 27-hour shoot. And so the lights were hot. And some of those props, you know, made from, you know, pieces of dead chickens and this and that, they began to cook. Okay, jump cut back to, okay, getting rid of, you know, all those poor animals, and put them in a big pile and poured gasoline all over them and said, you know, poop. And I don't know if they thought this was going to make them disappear. Well, anyway, so they're on fire now, and the wind starts blowing, and all that smoke starts coming back into the house, and we're breathing that as well. And now everyone's getting sick, and so I have to call a doctor who brings something like Dramamine for seasickness, you know, because people were puking. They were, you know, I mean, and between takes, they would run to the window and stick their head out and throw up. And and it had been a very tough, intense shoot, and everyone was really wearing on one another's nerves, and and no one liked anyone.
Come on, Franklin. It's gonna be a fun trip.
I scored the movie myself, and so I can't write music, but I kind of get into, I don't know, it kind of starts happening, and so you know, I like the textural, the tonal bed to it, you know, that it provided, rather than conventional music, because it gave you the tones and all, but that sound, that zinging sound, is a, you know, a little creation of something I bumped into accidentally. But a lot of it, like the choral, you know, you hear, oh, well, it's, you know, it's me with a cardboard tube this long and a microphone at the end of it. I wanted to affect you with the volume as loud as I could. I simply wanted to, you know, to bombard your senses. Oh, how would I define it? As ironic, dark comedy. Because it's, you know, the humor in it is like Leatherface is taking out several of our, you know, of the main cast. And the older brother that runs the filling station and wants to keep, you know, the family unit together in its own abstract moralities, is, you know, screaming about the door is broken, you know, and so it's very ironic, but at the same time, things like that happen. It took 8 years from the original time of release until I saw people start reacting to the ironic humor. I think because it was just too shocking. I mean, not too shocking, but it was so shocking because it could be real, the terror or the inexorable situation that these young people find themselves in, this relentless situation.
I think we ought to go.
I realized at the time that it was special, you know, and because it's something that I hadn't seen. And all the reactions from just the script. The crew would read the script and lock the door at night. You know, I would like to make regular comedy, but and maybe I will. I had the final cut on Chainsaw 1. There was no interference from any executives saying, well, I don't understand this. You know, you'll have to put a line in here to... You know, Chainsaw would not have been made under the situations of this town. They would have never made it. They would have had to have had so much explanation, you know, and there's so much that we see that fascinate us that there's no explanation. Maybe a little nostalgia, but I'm finally able to see it like audience, and it's taken a long time to separate. As all the films I've made, it takes sometimes, you know, years to kind of try to forget that I was there.